to today's video. And in today's video, I'll be doing the 2024 election prediction between Joe Manchin and Susan Collins. I was gonna do my reaction to UEP's video, but I'm thinking I'm gonna do that tomorrow. I'm gonna probably redo it. It's a lot of editing work. I got it pretty good, but for whatever reason, like something cut off. It's gonna be a lot of work. And I may need like a full-on free day tomorrow. I mean, like a lot of my day, honestly. Like if I'm being honest with you, it's probably gonna spend either sitting down, watching The Simpsons, or at my soccer game tomorrow. I had a game today. Tomorrow's our last game of the season since it's like a really short season. So soccer. Actually, well, I also have my club team. That's for my school team. I'm gonna have soccer, but not nearly as much. So it'll probably be a much less dominating factor in my schedule. The only really thing that's gonna be making my schedule harder to record is school. But I mean, like we only have a few weeks left of school. School ends in like late June for us. So yeah, soon at like by like the end of June, like July. Actually, my birthday's in July. But by like July, we'll be able to I'll essentially be able to be free to do stuff like this. Like I could probably I don't necessarily know that I would, but I would probably have enough time to like crank out like maybe like an election night a week. Once again, I don't necessarily know that I would. But I would have hardly any soccer. Actually, I'm gonna have a lot of soccer games. Not a whole lot of soccer in new school. So we're looking good then. So I'll probably try to have that UEP reaction video up by tomorrow though. I'm gonna get started with this though. This is a very strange prediction, by the way. For those of you that don't know, Joe Manchin is a Democratic senator from West Virginia, and Susan Collins is a Republican senator from Maine. Manchin is a very conservative Democrat. He has been a roadblock for the Democratic Party. Him and Sinema have been major roadblocks for the Democrats, causing problems for him. To pass their legislation. Very conservative Democrat. Susan Collins is a very liberal Republican. Like it wouldn't be stretching it to say that Collins may be more liberal than Manchin, because it's really a possibility that they are. According to VoteView, I think that they had Manchin being more liberal than Collins, but I honestly think that it would not be outrageous to say that Collins is more liberal than Manchin, because once you get to this, I mean like Collins, I don't necessarily know has been as much of a roadblock as Manchin, but I mean like with the healthcare bill with McCain's famous no vote, her and Murkowski were both um were both against it, so they voted no with McCain. I mean like Manchin, we could have done Kirsten Sinema for the Democrats. I don't know if she's more of like a conservative Democrat or she's more of like a neolib, which I mean like yes, neoliberals are fairly conservative, but it's less of like a center right type of thing and more of like a yes, probably center right. But it's a different type since it's neoliberalism. So since it's so strange, I mapped this out beforehand, but it's gonna be confusing. So I'm just gonna start starting over here, and just moving on. Um, Starting with Washington and Oregon, I think that these are two likely states for Collins, and they are pretty reliably Democratic states. I mean, like, looking at this, I think that Collins would probably do better in, with a lot of these, like, West Coast Democrats, and she'd probably, like, we could see Manchin do better in the rural areas, but these major cities, are a much more driving factor in these areas, and I think that Collins would probably do better with a lot of those voters, especially since a lot of them are Democrats, and they're probably fed up with Manchin. Next up for California, I actually think it's lean to Collins. It's a hard call, but I do think that Collins would carry it lean, just because I mean like she would do better in rural areas. I mean like she would. Both aren't great for the Hispanic and Latino vote. If I'm being honest, they're both pretty bad. Um, I can't see any upside for them, either of them. With them, they're both awful candidates for minority voters in general. They're both weak for them. I could see Collins doing decent, though. But, I think that she would probably do better in LA because Manchin would just be too unpopular. And she'd do better in urban areas, because Manchin would be too unpopular with Democrats. Next up is the state of Nevada. I'm not certain, but I am going to give it to Collins Tilt. I think that Manchin would do better with the working class in Nevada, and with the rural vote. But I think that we would likely see Collins do better in Vegas and see her do better in the suburbs. And yes, she'd do worse in rural areas, but it wouldn't be like insanely worse. Like yes, she would do pretty bad. Um, but I do think it could be tilt red. I think we could see it be tilt blue because Manchin would have more strength in rural areas. But I am gonna give it to Collins. Tilt. Next state, Arizona. Like this is Collins' bread and butter. A state like Arizona, swing state, traditionally Republican. Like traditional Republicans, this is where Collins is gonna do very very well. In a state like Arizona, like traditional Republicans. And she is definitely a moderate center right, maybe even center left Republican. I don't see her not winning this. I'm just gonna go do New Mexico next. I have this lean to Manchin. Actually, I'm gonna go to him likely. So the thing is, they're both weak to the Hispanic and Latino vote. Manchin would be good in the rural areas, and I actually think that Manchin, his strength would be with oil workers. He would have a lot of strength with, I mean, like, yeah, coal country, West Virginia, but I think that he would have strength in general with um like fossil fuel workers, which is why I think he would do pretty well in New Mexico. Um, for Colorado, I'm actually gonna give this to Collins. Um, I I don't see. I think that they're both pretty average with Hispanic and Latino vote. It may narrowly favor Collins, but she would be much, much, much better in the suburbs. And like we could see, rural areas shift to Collins. I think that the rural areas would probably go to Manch. Well, the rural areas are gonna have to tell. Sorry, my mic just fell. That probably made some really annoying audio. I apologize for that. That was not fun. I just think that in Colorado, I mean, like, Collins will probably nearly win it. We could see Manchin win it, though. Utah, I'm going to give it to Collins, actually, safe. I mean, like, Manchin, I think that in a state like Utah, where, I mean, like, it didn't like Trump a lot. I mean, like, Romney won it by, like, 40%, and then Trump only won it by, like, 20%. So I don't necessarily know that it's, exactly like a Trumpian, or Trumpist loving state. State doesn't necessarily love Trumpism, but I don't see Collins doing poorly enough, with Mormon voters, and I mean, like, I don't see Manchin honestly performing well enough. Wyoming and Idaho, I think, are both likely for Collins. I mean, like, looking at these states, they're pretty like rural, middle nowhere, states. I mean, like, looking at this, actually, them being like kind of farmer states, I guess. I don't know, not like Missouri, but like, I mean, like, what do you do in Wyoming? I guess it's like farming states. I see Manchin doing better, but I mean, like, they're two of the most conservative states in the nation. It would not be enough. Except for the state of Montana. Montana is a more moderate state, and it favors the Republicans, yeah, but it's a more moderate state. And Collins is a very moderate Republican, which is why I'm going to give it to her. North Dakota, South Dakota, very similar to Wyoming. I mean, like, they're just too conservative at this point. I mean, like, Manchin would probably do better in rural areas, but I don't see it being enough. Next up, Nebraska at large. I'm going to give to Collins likely, because Manchin, I think that Manchin would be better in, like, rural areas, in, like, farmland, rural Nebraska. But I think that, it's still a pretty red state, so Collins probably still win it. Nebraska's first. I think I'm gonna give it to Collins safe. I mean, like, it's a fairly suburban area. She would underperform Trump in rural areas. Actually, well, I'm gonna give it to her likely, because she would underperform Trump in rural areas, but definitely overperform him in the suburbs. In Nebraska's second, I'm actually gonna go to Collins lean. I don't see Manchin being popular enough in Omaha or Lincoln. And I also don't see him doing well enough with suburbanites to be able to win it. And then Nebraska's third, it's very conservative. I mean, like, we could say it'd be likely, but actually, well, against Manchin, I think it could easily be like, well, no, Trump won it by like 50-something%. It's probably gonna be like a much narrower margin victory, but it's still very red. Kansas, I'm debating this. I'm gonna give it to Collins lean. because here's the thing, she's she's gonna do worse in the rural areas, but she's gonna definitely do better in Wichita. And I mean, it's already red, but she's gonna do even better there. She's gonna do significantly better in Kansas City suburbs, which is why I'm gonna have to give it to her. Lean. I think Manchin winning it is not outside the realm of possibility though. Oklahoma, it's a lot like Nebraska. It's too red. I mean, like I don't see it voting blue, even if it's for a conservative Democrat like Manchin. It's just so red. I mean, like, she would likely do worse in rural areas, but the rural areas are just too red. In Texas, I'm gonna give this to Collins Lean. Now, looking at this, she would definitely do way worse in rural areas, but I think that she would narrowly overperform with the Hispanic and Latino vote. Um, and not necessarily overperform Trump, but I think that she'd be nearly favored over Manchin when they're both pretty awful candidates. Like, I guess, like, I don't know. But they're both pretty awful candidates for the vote. But then she would definitely do better in the suburbs. The rural the rural shift, I guess, would be too much. For Manchin's lean state, I guess for Louisiana, I think it's a Manchin lean state. I think honestly across the South, it's a lot of Manchin, Till, and Lean. Let's just go do this. Actually, I'm gonna give Arkansas to Lean. I think that Manchin has a lot of appeal to these. I mean, like, he won West Virginia. Like, yeah, he's gonna lose, but it's a very red area, and I think he has honestly a lot of appeal to these voters. These southern voters from like a while ago, like in Arkansas, in a lot of these areas, they used to be fairly blue, like West Virginia, but since then they have left the Democratic Party. A lot of more ancestral Democrats. And I do think that Manchin would do well here. Um, in Georgia and South Carolina, I'm gonna have to give him to him Till, just because I don't see him doing well enough with black voters. But I think he would do well in the rural areas. In Florida, I'm gonna have to give this to Collins Lean. I don't see Manchin doing well in Miami Dade, or well enough. But I also it's like a center right state. In Collins is once again center right, which is why I'm gonna have to give it to Collins Lean. Next state, North Carolina. I think Manchin carries it Till. Collins would do better with suburbanites and with black voters in Charlotte, but Manchin would I think really run it up with the working class and the rural vote in North Carolina. Let's move on to Kentucky. I think it's Lean. I mean, it's a kind of Rust Belt southern state at the same time. It's kind of strange. But I don't see Manchin doing poorly enough with the rural vote. And with a lot of these working class Rust Belt voters over here, Missouri. I'm actually gonna give it to Manchin as well. I think that he is. I think that we would see Collins do better in St. Louis suburbs and Kansas City suburbs. We would see Manchin overperform so significantly in the rural areas that I do think would be Lean blue. Next up, say to West Virginia. Also Lean blue. Actually, I'm gonna give it to him likely blue. Here's the thing. He won re-election here, and I do think he will lose. However, we have to remember, Collins is not a Trumpist. I mean, like, she is a very moderate Republican, and I mean, like, that's not gonna be that's not exactly gonna be how you win in the state. You're gonna win by nominating populist Trumpists, not somebody like Collins. Which is why I don't think that she would be amazing for the state. Normal Virginia, I guess just Virginia. Not West Virginia. I don't know. East Virginia? Well, no, actually, because parts of it are west. Like over here, this is west of West Virginia. Yeah, okay, but I don't know. Virginia. I don't see Collins doing well enough with the white rural vote to be able to win here. I think that she would probably do better in the DC suburbs. But I do think that actually I'm gonna go to her Till, just because I do think that she'd do better in like these DC suburbs. And Manchin, yes, would do better in rural areas, but I do think that she'd do better in the DC suburbs, and that would help her. I'm just gonna go all the way across here. Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania. Sorry, my computer's about to die. I'm gonna go get a charger so it's not so slow. I just got a charger so that I can, so that my computer's not gonna die. So, looking at these areas, I'm gonna label Illinois real quick. I think Illinois is lean blue. I mean, we could see it be lean red. But I do think it's probably lean blue as of right now. In Iowa, he's too good at the white rural vote, and Collins would be too weak. Same thing in Minnesota. She would do pretty well, and I think in Minneapolis and its suburbs. Other than that, Manchin would do really well. Wisconsin, I mean, like it's more competitive, but I do think that he would do well. I think that she would probably do pretty well in Madison, Milwaukee. But I do think he would probably be able to turn it up in the rural areas. In Michigan, he's too good with the white working class. Same thing in Pennsylvania and Ohio and Indiana. In Illinois, I think he's definitely too good at the white working class. But in Chicago, I mean, like I guess he could see Collins do really well. But I don't think it would be enough. Like it's a very blue state, and even if Collins makes significant gains, I don't think it would be enough. Next up, the state of Maryland. I am really not certain on this one. I'm just gonna give it to. Oh, by the way, DC is safe. No way a Republican wins there. I guess I'm gonna have to give it to Manchin. I mean, like, I'm gonna give it to him. Actually, I'm gonna give it to him safe. It's so blue. I think that Collins probably do better in DC suburbs and in Baltimore, but it wouldn't be enough. Like we could be like likely. I think we're gonna see like a 16% Maryland. Delaware, Manchin's too good in the rural areas to be able to lose it. Everything else though, I do think it's probably lean Collins, or likely Collins. Alaska. Actually, well, I'm gonna let Alaska be the lean Manchin, and then I guess Hawaii, is safe Manchin. Not much, I guess, on Hawaii. Oh, Jersey, lean red. Actually, likely red. So looking at this, I mean, like in New York, I think that Collins will probably do better in New York City and definitely do better upstate and rural areas. In Maine, all across the board, like it's her home state. I don't see her doing poorly enough there, especially against Manchin. New Hampshire, all across the Northeast, I think it should do significantly better with the white rural college educated vote. And in New Hampshire, it's also more I guess more conservative, more competitive. So I guess more conservative in like the uber liberal Northeast. So I do think that she would probably carry it by a likely margin. Massachusetts and Vermont are too liberal for it to be likely. Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, all are pretty or more conservative. I mean, like they could all be likely margins, which is why I'm gonna give them all to her by likely margins, just considering the fact that they could be more competitive. In Alaska, I think that we would see Manchin do significantly better with oil workers, and Collins would do worse. I guess we could see Collins win here. It would not be outside of the realm of possibility. But I also think that Manchin would do better Collins could also do pretty well with Native Americans. I'm not certain. But I do think that he would do really, really well with oil workers. In Hawaii, I mean, like, it's so liberal, I don't see anything changing. So yeah, this is a very strange map. It is 236 to 302, which normally when I see that, it's like, oh, normally I see that, I'm like, oh, crap, this is the same 2020 map. I guess it's what I think is going to happen, but it's 2020, but, like, it's clearly not 2020. Donald Trump did not carry Utah or Nevada or Arizona by a likely margin while losing West Virginia by a likely margin. I don't know, but yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like below. Stay tuned for my next video tomorrow. I'll try to edit that UEP thing by tomorrow. Hopefully I'll be able to. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.